Good afternoon / evening. My name is Alexia Gonzalez. I'm the owner and the founder of My Man Is Not My Plan. How many of you guys, is this the first event that you've ever come to? Okay, so we've got a bunch of newbies. This is great. Let me spend just a little bit of time to let you guys know what we do. Actually, I founded My Man Is Not My Plan because of 2 divorce clients that I had. So the inspiration did come out, doing financial planning for divorcees. And it was just really, really hard for me to sit across the table and to see that this, was still happening and, something that I found our day and age. Now, My Man Is Not My Plan, what it is about is taking a woman to that feeling in her life where she feels like she can celebrate a wise, long line of financial decisions. Now, along that, as you guys know, finances is not just, how much money do I have in my bank? It's, a lot of other things, right? I mean, it's a feeling that really comes down to even the psychology. And women are very, very different than men. And a lot of studies have showed that the number one thing that alienates women in any service is that they feel patronized and talked down to. How many people in here, and I think we have a couple of men, that feel patronized when they went to go acquire a service from someone? Anybody ever felt patronized? Like somebody talked down to, like you didn't know what was going on. This is something that is very prevalent and that alienates a lot of women. So this is something that My Man Is Not My Plan is here to do, is to create a safe space for women and their families. And also, we also welcome men. We also welcome men to come and get educated and take certain actions, okay? So that's a little bit about My Man Is Not My Plan. Today, we're gonna go back to the core of how, this all, spun into reality. And we're going to talk about a transition that really is not a surprise in our society. Today I was talking to a client and she was like, I heard it was 63% of all marriages end in divorce. And I'm like, well, it depends if you're talking about the first, second, or third, right? So, it's just part of life. How do we transition into it is a huge, huge planning process. It should be done properly. And today, for any person that wants this information on a personal level, we are not going to be giving any legal advice because nobody that is speaking here today is an attorney. So if there are any legal questions, I believe there could be a couple of attorneys in the room. Do field those questions separately, okay? So with that, I'm gonna open up the floor today to our speakers. And I'm gonna introduce first a very personal friend of mine, great friend, who's gonna give a little rendition of something that happened to her and a little bit of her background, because I think it's so interesting when we meet people, walking in the street or anything like this. It's so crazy how if you actually talk to somebody, you're going to find out what their story is, right? Like any person that you walk across, has just the most fulfilling story. If you just open up that book and try to see what he or she is about. And a little bit of her story is that she was a very successful corporate businesswoman, was married to a very successful man, and through the roles she felt she had to play within her marriage, had to step back out of her career to be a mom, to be a wife, and to fulfill all these duties. Fast forward a couple of years, she's suddenly surprised with a change of heart that her husband has, and she's never managed the money, right? She's been out of the loop. What does she do now? So with further ado, I'm going to let her tell her story. Rocio Gonzalez.
Thank you, Alexia. My name is Rocio, and I'm here not today as an expert, but as a human that has been learned by her personal experience, like everyone else. I want to share what I think it is important, that everyone has the decision to make the best, has the right to make the best decisions when the time arrives. Everyone has their own story. Mine is similar to many of others. And although even we are in our difficult times and our darkest moments in our life, those are the moments that we really need to take action and make some decisions, because that will affect us and will affect the ones that are close to us. I have come to understand that time solves most things. But there are some that take much more time. For me, it has taken more than 4 years. I don't want you to wait up to that happens. My life was a happy marriage family with 20 years of marriage, and ended in a different story where I became not a woman, not a professional. I needed to restart my life again. But I forgot that I had some dependents that were my children at that moment. I would like to share with you that something that made me take the decision was an exercise that I would like to share with all of you. So please, I will ask you to close your eyes, and I will do it with you. Bring to your mind and your heart the loved and closest ones that trust on you and depend on you. Visualize what will you teach them and how will they benefit from you. Visualize in 5 years, in that period, what are the consequences of the actions and decisions that you made or didn't make. How do you feel? Are you satisfied with yourself? Do you feel proud of you? What about your loved ones? Go further. Now, make that visualization in 10 years, but change the story. Now, celebrate all the accomplishments that you have made, because you made and take the right decisions at the right moment. You can open your eyes. I want to share that my 5 period was devastated. I didn't want to live. I tried to suicide twice. And when I visualized that moment, my children not lost only their father, they lost the mother, becoming them in a different story. I've been so fortunate. I'm so blessed that I asked for help. I accepted help from friends, family, and experts because I was not capable to make and take my decisions. And right now, I can be here and stand up in front of you, and I can see that the story will change, that my story of my children, I want to be with them and celebrate their graduations, their family success, and everything. And I was missing that part. I was thinking not to take care of the finances because I left that power to someone else. So when I come up to now and I find some powerful mentoring woman that can help us, that's my best advice I can give you. No therapist will give you that advice. You will spend all your money on all those medications, on all those therapies. We need to take action. Nobody will do it for ourselves. I would like to end with the rule of 3 simple things to make you remind that very easy. Today is your decision day. It was not yesterday. It is not going to be tomorrow, because we will not worry about what is happening tomorrow. Look at yourself and your future in 5 and 10 years in advance, but be honest with yourself and the people that you really love and depend on you, because they will learn from you as their example. And third, and the most important, to take action. Today, I did it. My action today was I divorced my old story, and now, today, I start my new one. Thank you. I'm so honored to introduce Caridad Vasallo. She's not only a respectable professional, but she's a wonderful woman that has been inspired and blessed to help many people, many women like me. So I cannot give any better introduction to her. Cari?
Thank you, Rocio, for your story, and also thank you for the very kind introduction. I wanted to start off with a question. How many of the people in our audience right now go to the supermarket and read the labels on the products we buy? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Why do you read the label?
When do I read the label?
Why?
Oh, why do I read the label?
Yeah.
Watch my food.
You have to watch your weight, and the best way to watch your weight is to know what's in there, correct?
Exactly.
Now, did anybody in our audience not raise their hand? You, Alexia. You're on isogenics and you don't, wow.
Because I can't eat any other food. I'm on the air diet.
So what's your reason for not reading the label?
You know, it's just not top of mind.
Not top of mind. So if it's out of mind, out of sight, why think about it now?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to help people today is give them the power to read the labels in their life. What does that mean? That means how can you better inform yourself and provide yourself the power needed to read those labels and get the information you need off the product. So as you can see from some of the divorce statistics we have on here, on average in the US, if you're married, approximately 50% of those marriages end in divorce. And we're not here right now to, even though it's called My Man Is Not My Plan, our goal is not to do any type of man bashing. Our goal is not to diminish the value of a long-lasting relationship. In fact, every single person in this room, I know if I would ask, do you want to be in a long-lasting relationship, they would raise their hand and say yes, because that's what we all want. So that's not my goal here today. My goal is, however, to make people know that if there's 50% of divorces, if 50% of marriages ending in divorce, that means that's a very powerful statistic and it's something we need to know about. So what does that mean to some geeky accountant like myself? So what that means is for, every 36 seconds there's somebody's filing for a divorce. If we drill down further, because that's what us accountants like to do, that means there's 100 divorces every hour. Margarita's laughing because that's what I make her do. She works with me. So there's 100 divorces every hour. That's over 800,000 divorces a year. Those are very powerful statistics. So how come there's still people who don't read the label? And that's what I'm here today for. I'm here to help you read those labels and understand what you need to know and how to better prepare yourself for the future. This workshop is not meant for people who just want to get a divorce. This workshop is actually meant for people who are happily married, happily divorced, somewhere in between. We're actually here for all those people. And that's okay. You can be in different phases of your life. We're just here to help you read that label, like we stated before. So I'm going to take us to another slide now. So that is Mr. George Clooney, who we're all familiar with in this room. So I love the theater. I don't know how many other people here love the theater, but I know I do. And one of the great things about the theater is just like reading labels, just like understanding the numbers, is that there's so many complexities involved. But the more you drill down into the characters, the more you get to know them, and the more you bond with them, and the more you can understand about the entire nature of the play. So this specific scene is from a movie called Intolerable Cruelty. Has anyone seen that movie? Yes? Yes? Good. I usually ask that and everybody says no. So let me explain the scene. This specific scene is a scene where the two parties are coming together. There's a very long table because everything has to be dramatic in Hollywood, which I love. So there's a very long table. The husband is being represented by George Clooney. On the other side of that table is Catherine Zeta-Jones, who's the wife, and she has her attorney. They're both there, they're discussing a settlement options, they're yelling back and forth numbers, and talks break down, they both leave the room. So in that scenario, the one thing that was missing would be me. So I'm the forensic accountant who would help people address the numbers. So I would be one of the people, I'm not a yeller, so I'm not gonna yell, but I would be talking about the numbers. In that scene, they were yelling numbers. And of course, and the other thing is, in reality, I would be working for George Clooney because I will only work for George Clooney. Because, for just obvious reasons. So just like in this scene, there's cast of characters. So what I want to talk about are 3 main types of cast of characters that I come across a lot. Just so an FYI for all the women, I made sure all my slides were attractive. Attractive males throughout, because we all need eye candy. So this is, I'm going to discuss 3 cast of characters. I do want to mention these are not my only cast of characters. I mean, we all work and we come across different types of personalities. These are just common ones that I wanted to talk about. And in order to discuss them, I wanted some group participation. So I want 3 people to volunteer. Felix, you raised your hand. Thank you. Welcome to being the token male in the room. Come on. So who else? Margarita, thanks for volunteering. Yeah. Annie, yay. Okay, so you're each going to be a person, and all I need you to do is tell the story of that person. So you're the controller. Annie, you're going to be Slim Shady, who's character number 2, and you're going to be the pauper. So Felix is going to tell a story of the controller, which is this well-dressed gentleman. Whoops. Go ahead.
The controller, Jennifer, is the controller. Joseph, created there in the program at the University of Miami. They both fell madly in love, and even though Jennifer was highly ambitious, an ambitious woman, when they had children, she decided to stay home and take care of the household. Joseph was able to excel in his career as an executive with Caridad. and made it to VP of Supply Chain Management. Joseph's happy personality used in business sense and was a sole financial decision maker in the marriage. After 25 years of marriage, Jennifer and Joseph filed for divorce.
Now, in each of these 3 scenarios, there's going to be 2 common questions I always ask. And those 2 common questions are, what are the financial implications of filing for divorce under the current set of facts? The second question is, what could have been done differently during the marriage? In each of these examples, I do want to reiterate, we're not telling people do divorce planning. What I'm telling people is to plan. The whole concept of this group is to plan. So in the first scenario, Jennifer, this whole time has been married. She's been the CEO of her own household. She allowed, she put herself in that role, and the role of her husband was that of the financial provider, the one who understood and took care of all the finances. So what are the implications of her filing for divorce currently? She's going to have something called a mandatory disclosure. And as stated in the case facts, she never took care of any of the financials. So she's going to sit with her forensic accountant, her legal team. They're going to start asking her a common set of questions. First question, one of the first questions on there is, what are your bank accounts? So if someone like me would sit there with Jennifer, ask her, what bank accounts do you hold? Jennifer's going to say, I don't know. Do you know how many? I'm not sure. And that's generally the response that someone like Jennifer would have. Then I'll ask her, do you have brokerage accounts? She'll say, I don't know. I'll go down the list, ask her, how about credit cards? And she'll say, I have the credit cards that are currently in my wallet, but I'm not sure what he has or what's still open. So this is a common scenario where a lot of times we have people who come into our office, they don't know what they have. That's not uncommon. So what could have been done differently during the marriage? So like I stated before, we're all about planning here. So how do you plan for something like this? Number 1, have an open dialogue with your spouse. Ask them, hey, what are the usernames and passwords of these accounts? let's write them up in some type of Excel spreadsheet. Should anything happen to one of the other spouses, doesn't have to be a divorce. It could be somebody gets hit by a car. Like, how are you going to pay for your bills? What do you know that's going out of your account? So that's one of the common recommendations that I do is reach out to your spouse, have an open dialogue with them before anything is occurring, and try to set out a list of what you currently own as it relates to financial institutions. So your banking accounts, brokerage accounts, investment accounts, anything of that nature. The other thing I recommend is we all get documents in the mail. Instead of throwing away those documents, let's store them. We can store that information for a year. Should anything happen, you don't know if you're gonna go out there and modify a loan, anything. You have all these records in place. The other thing I recommend is for people to keep their tax returns for 3 years. Tax returns are the quickest way for someone like me to get a financial overview of how somebody's doing. Because it's very easy to understand what somebody owns and what doesn't own just by looking at a 1040. So that's my first recommendation, and that's my first example is the controller, the well-dressed gentleman here. Now the other cast of characters is Slim Shady. You can sit, I don't want to make you stand up here the whole time if you're uncomfortable. Okay, Slim Shady.
Slim Shady Samuel met a very pretty lady, Samantha. Samantha and Samuel got married and had a baby. The problem was that Samantha knew very little about Samuel. Samuel had a business, and that business seemed to provide well, since all of Samantha's financial needs were addressed. After 5 years of marriage, Samantha was done with Samuel's Slim Shady ways, and they now had a small child amounting bills to be paid.
I tried to make that one rhyme as much as possible because I figured people remember Slim Shady, and I know Alexia is a fan of Slim Shady. So once again, the two questions that we have. What are the financial implications of filing currently under these current situations? So as I stated, Samantha knows that her needs are being met. And like most, I would say most women, it can be men as well. If our needs are being met as it relates to the financial aspects, what do we need to worry about where it's coming from? We could be coming from his business. He has a lot of entities. It could come from his business. It could come from him personally. So then she'll sit with an attorney. And this is a very, very common scenario where personal expenses are being paid through the business. She'll sit with her attorney and she'll say, well, or her accountant, and she'll say, well, I know he's paying for stuff through a business. I don't know what it is. I don't know the amounts. So what could be done differently during the marriage in order to avoid something like that? One of the things I recommend is financial institutions, we have them available to us in like a QuickBooks type of scenario. You can just click a button and it downloads the information into a QuickBooks. That's accounting software. So your accountant can come in and determine how much are you spending up for like shampoo, how much are you spending for this, for that, to the smallest detail. And that'll give us an idea. We know already now what's being paid out of the personal account. What's not being paid out is going to tell us it's being paid by a business. So that's one of the things I recommend for people to do. Once you had that first dialogue like Jennifer did, where you know what accounts are being held and you have a listing of all those accounts on a spreadsheet, go ahead, do the next step, download that information on a monthly basis into a software program. So that's Slim Shady. And then our last person is the pauper, who looks very poor. You're welcome.
The other Peter very Penelope and Peter lived an extravagant lifestyle. Penelope was a high-profile divorce attorney, and she never thought of solace since both needs were being met. Penelope and Peter started having marital issues. Suddenly, Peter started telling Penelope his business is doing poorly, and he needs to cut down on Penelope's expenses. About 6 months later, Penelope is served with divorce papers from Peter.
So Penelope's situation is actually a very difficult situation to deal with, because now we have something that's a date of filing date. That's where we would value her business as of date of filing. And it's 6 months later, we don't know what Peter's been doing to the business in the meantime in order to diminish the value. We don't know if what he's stating to her is accurate or inaccurate. He could be telling the truth, he could not be telling the truth. But the fact that she stalled in order to get an understanding, there's going to be an impact to that business. So the value of the entity is no longer going to be the same as it was 6 months ago. In addition to that, if you notice in the scenario, similar to the scenario before, there's needs that are being paid out. However, her needs in the last 6 months have been diminished because her husband has been telling her, you don't need to spend this because we can't afford it. So now she has a 6 month period where she has, diminished needs. And there's a pattern during the last 6 months that that's not what she needs to continue forward. What could have been done during the 6 months prior to that? So valuing the company is a little bit difficult, and that's not something I would obviously tell a client, start valuing your company 6 months before, because he says that the value is going to diminish. I would tell the clients, though, know what your husband does for a living. Know what type of industry are they in. It's easy, it's a Google search. What type of company does he have? And that's putting the name into the Google search and seeing what hits up. There's a type of corporate Wikipedia, which comes up, it'll tell you how many employees are in there, their gross revenues per year, a range. These are things that are common knowledge, and it's just a Google search. And what better way to protect yourself and to know what's going on with your spouse than to just do a Google search on them, on their company, and see what's going on. So that's one of the recommendations that I can make as to how to best plan for that scenario. That is a difficult scenario to plan for, though. And thank you guys for coming up and being my captured characters. Conclusion. So there's a common thread in all these stories. Does anyone know what that common thread is? Planning. So I like to call the people who don't plan in these scenarios the damsels in distress. What do I want to change? I have people who come into my office every day, and I would say on a weekly basis, I have a couple of damsels in distress that I come across. I want those damsels in distress to be the heroine of their own story. I can empower them to do that. Part of that is planning. In addition to that, I actually welcome all of you to become the damsel, to not be the damsels in distress and instead become the heroine of your own story. Be the example for your family. Be the leader you want to be in the community and within your own household. And how do you do that? Planning. Read that label, turn over the package, look at what's in the ingredients, and understand what the source of the information is. So part of that is what I wanted to convey to people. Just have the dialogue and communicate. And even though you may not be going through this specific set of scenarios, still plan for the worst case scenario. And if it doesn't happen, great. If it does, okay, you can move past that. So I welcome each and every one of you to become the heroine of your own story. Should you wish to talk to me personally, I can sit with you guys individually and talk to you about how you can become that heroine. So I thank you so much for your time today. And if you have any questions of me, Rocio, or Alexia, let me know. Okay.
Any questions?
And I know this is like a sensitive subject, so maybe people don't want to ask a question. I understand. And there's also a lot of legal things I can't address. But so I'll give everybody my card if they want to, and they can talk to me. Sure.
What can you do when you're already starting the process?
When you're already starting the process,
And you didn't plan a thing. So, like, you chant.
so your man was your plan. No, I'm just kidding. If you didn't plan a thing, it's just going through the regular course. It's getting the right team with you. So the first thing I would tell you is speak to the right professional as it relates to your legal team. Because I can't address legal questions, but I can help you with any of the financials. So you would want to consult with an attorney first and foremost, because the attorney will put in the paperwork in motion in order to get someone like me on board, in order to help you have an idea of what you actually own. Because a lot of times people don't know what they own. It sounds like a silly comment that I'm making, but if you would ask me individually before I started accounting, I wouldn't know the answer to that either. So it's getting an idea of what your financial picture is, getting an idea how much you spend, getting a handle of if you have children, I'm not sure if you do or you don't, but getting an idea of what the impact is for the children. That's more of a legal question that needs to be addressed by attorneys. So that's why I always recommend people first sit with their attorneys, and then their attorneys will make a recommendation as to whether or not an accountant is needed on their case. Sometimes you don't need an accountant, other times you do. Okay. You're welcome.
For instance, from the attorney's perspective, if our client comes to us and we do determine that an accounting is needed, how can we help you or make your job easier in the sense of preparing our clients before they go see you, as far as financial documents needed that they can start perhaps, gathering and whatnot?
I usually tell people if they can have the documents relating to the mandatory disclosure provided to our office, that's like amazing. That's above and beyond what we normally get. But that would be great, because then we get the tax returns, we get the bank statements, any other brokerage accounts, and any other loans they may have, current, and it'll give us a good financial picture of them. And then we can ask for more stuff after. We can help you guys with the request for production. Any other question? Alexia.
Hey, so my question goes more in line with the characters that you had, Slim Shady, I think it was Peter the Pauper. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a stigma with my clients that I only need a forensic one if there's something weird going on.
Right.
Is that accurate? Could you speak a little bit more to that?
It's not actually always about something weird. So a lot of the scenarios I gave, it's not like scenario number one. It's not something weird that was happening. It was just she wasn't formally aware of what the financial picture was. So a lot of times our added value is just making people aware of what they have for mediation purposes. Doesn't mean we need to go into the case and testify and go to a bunch of hearings. That's usually what you have in a more contentious type of environment. But at least we can give you guys a good idea of what your net worth is and what you're spending, and that way you can go into a mediation and have that information to negotiate with. So if you don't fall into a particular category, or if you know somebody who doesn't fall into that category, that doesn't mean that they're any less of a concern to your professionals. It just means they just didn't happen to get a fancy name and weren't on my slides. There's still people that may need the help of a legal professional or an accountant or a financial planner for when after they're done with their divorce, what do they do with their assets? And how can they maximize that income stream? All right, so thank you.
Thank you.